What it do, Snackers, Snackettes, and Snack X's? Your boy Gage is here with the homie Jokes
Yo, yo!
for another episode of Spoiler Boys.
Spoiler boys!
And as you can see from the background, it's time for us to spoil Spider-Man Brand New Day. Look, as the name would suggest, we are going full spoilers here.
hmm
Um, Jokes, how many times have you seen this movie?
Twice now.
Good, me too. Um, so yeah, we're gonna dig into. I've been getting a lot of questions from people about certain things in the film. We're going to talk
Same.
about how we feel about it, what our scores are. Yes, this is a surprise episode.
hmm
No, nobody knew we were going to go live. But it just felt like the right thing to do, right, Jokes?
Yes, sir!
Yeah. So, um, we're going to go ahead and start digging in. Jokes as per usual.
hmm
We need to give our upfront before discussion scores for the movie. Having seen it twice in the theater now, where are you?
So I've been going back and forth. Like, I'm trying to be you at times and trying to, like, poke holes in everything. I'm trying to figure out things, if there's anything about this movie that rubbed me the wrong way or whatever it may be. And personally, I don't have anything that rubs me wrong about this movie. At first, I was like, it's a 9. Like, no, no. But then at the same time, I'm like, this one's a 10. Because
Mm.
honest truth, for what is supposed to be, a solo Spider-Man movie with a couple of other people sprinkled in, I was afraid originally on with knowing some of the pieces. We knew Hulk was going to be in it and things like how much that would overall impact the overall tone and foundation of the movie. And I think because of how they did that, it made it perfect for me. Like, I don't have any complaints about this movie. I have to give it a 10.
Okay,
And now
10
you
is
may
pretty
be
strong.
different. It's very strong.
10 is super strong. I am sitting at a 9.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely think that there is the possibility that I could feel like it's closer to a 10 by the time we're done having this discussion.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the reason why I'm at a 9 is is something we're going to discuss.
Mm-hmm.
So once I decide how I feel about that, after we get a chance to discuss it, I'll it may or may not sway me one way or the other. But with you at a 10 and myself at a 9, um, I want to dig into the synopsis of what the film is a
mm-hmm.
little bit. Let's kind of set things up. So for a fourth outing,
Mm-hmm.
um, a Spider-Man. I just want you to know I'm picking up your room jokes. I think
Yeah.
your headset is
Oh, that little.
not. Yeah, yeah,
Oh, that.
yeah. I for a fourth film.
Check, check.
Yeah, I got you.
Sound there.
And I still hear the room, but like you're coming in louder now, so I think you're good. Um, I think that this film is very smart. I think it's very well put together. We're coming off of. It seems that at least the last two or three Spider-Man movies have
Mm-hmm.
been important MCU moment films. Like they have been things that have happened that kind of set things up for the world around. And
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a really smart move. Like early on in the MCU, Captain America was that character. Like
Mm-hmm.
it was Iron Man, but really then it became Captain America because it's really in the Captain America films where you start to get ensemble casts
Mm-hmm.
where all of the other characters that have become members or are known in the MCU. Civil War as is a great example of a movie that is Captain America's movie, but everybody else is in it. And
Mm-hmm.
what's happening in that movie is essential to everything else that's going on in the MCU. And whether you like it or not, whether you were initially on the Iron Man started the MCU train or not, Captain America was truthfully the favorite for the majority of people. Like, you know what I mean? Just kind of how it is. And that movie also introduced this Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
And from that point on, as we've watched this particular person grow from being in the ninth or 10th grade, right? At the start of his Spider-Man career,
Mm-hmm.
his greater Spider-Man career, if you will, to some extent. Um, there is no way to deny that Spider-Man is the most popular superhero on the planet. And when the MCU is struggling the way it is, and when I say struggling, like, you know, the numbers are what the numbers are, but it hasn't been what it once was.
Mm-hmm.
And using Spider-Man and the popularity of that character to show you other characters, to introduce you to new characters, to
Mm-hmm.
reintroduce you to old characters that you love, to say, "Hey, we back," or
Mm-hmm.
"Hey, if you don't know who this person is, go see who this person is," right?
Mm-hmm.
If you remember this version of this character, that version of this like using Spider-Man as the glue, as
Mm-hmm.
now the most important character in the entire MCU. And I'll be honest, I don't really care what anyone else thinks. That's what the case is. Spider-Man is the most important character in the MCU, not just because of what happens in this movie, but simply because of the popularity of Spider-Man. Like, period. So having control of that character, having managed to get control of that character, whatever the nuances of the contract are,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, this this character is the character that you can use to kind of help push everybody into whatever everything else is happening in the MCU. It looks like we got a couple of comments, jokes. I don't know if you can see those. Let me see.
I actually can't.
All right, give me a second. Uh, K jumping in. Just to
Okay,
say back,
Domingo
just to let us know
Fresh.
he's there. Let's see here. Andrew said, "Hey, hey, saw it Saturday at 9 a.m. The only thing was seeing his eyes through the lenses like a
We
Halloween."
had we had that conversation about
Man,
that off screen.
um, I actually like that. I
Mm-hmm.
actually think it's one of the most important things about this movie. Um, and we'll talk about it. This is again a fourth outing. Other Spider-Man films never managed to make it to four, right?
Listen, only one other movie franchise within the MCU has made four movies. So outside of Avengers, Avengers is kind of an anomaly. But if we're talking like just solo outing, Thor's the only other one that's been able to do this.
Yeah. Which I'm not sure was the best decision, in all honesty, to begin with. Um, Here's what I like about where we are as we get into this film. We've talked about it a little bit on weekly and
Mm-hmm.
other discussions, but jokes, the reality of it is, especially after seeing this movie, technically, this is Spider-Man 1. This is the first Spider-Man movie.
Mm-hmm.
Everything else, technically, we're going to say was like Spider-Boy. All of it, the events that happen in this film, there's a time jump. There's like a 4-year
Mm-hmm.
time jump, right? Where you don't really get to see Peter Parker being Spider-Man, really learning the ins and outs and doing things on his own,
Mm-hmm.
fighting all of these characters, but you get to see that the city loves him. The people love him. The elect mayor, not Wilson Fisk, has given him the key to the city. Like,
Yep.
he has grown into this, and this is our first real glimpse,
Mm-hmm.
technically, at Spider-Man as we have generally seen him in his other films. Even though those other films, those other franchises have an origin story, the the growth is immediate.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he goes from like not having powers to getting powers to figuring it out, and by the end of the first film, Slim is Spider-Man. Like, it
Yeah.
kind of just is what it is. This has been a very, very slow, cultivated growth over the course of three other films, where technically at the end of the last film, you are where you were at the beginning of Tobey Maguire's
Mm-hmm.
Spider-Man, where he's like getting his first old, dirty, nasty apartment by himself and having to go off and do it on his own. This is where you get the first real full Spider-Man suit made by him in the classic, like, blue and red. And
Mm-hmm.
so seeing him in this film technically is like, this is and it still is like, he's still not fully developed yet. He
Yeah.
gets to basically full development within this movie. We'll discuss whether I like organic webs or not momentarily.
Ugh.
Exactly. Um. So we're at a place where this is a Peter who has been alone for the last 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody knows who he is. Everybody that did know or love him either no longer remembers him or has passed away.
Mm-hmm.
And he is really, while finding success in being Spider-Man, is struggling with mentally and emotionally what it means to have to do that, to take on the great responsibility that come along with his powers, which for him it means he has to do it by himself.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where we are at when this film starts. Um and we get the good, like, opening reading of the letter. I want to say, I don't know where Peter Parker gets his pens, but whatever pen he used to write that letter, whoever sponsored this film that
Mm-hmm.
made that paper, that joint has been balled up, folded,
Dog.
wrinkled, stuffed in a coffee cup, rained on, cried on, definitely snotted on, and it is
Webbed on.
perfect, bro. Like, that joint is, it's the best ink ever.
Pristine. It's gone through everything possible. Like,
Yeah.
I bet you when he put it in the cup probably still had like driplets of coffee
Little,
and everything
yeah.
in there, like not even wiped out or anything. Like, I don't know.
What
It's
it,
whatever that paper's made out of is probably what the suit's made out of. I don't know.
well,
But
whatever
the
that
suit
ink
rips.
is. Because listen, let me tell you, I thought for a moment, like, when he comes back, we're jumping ahead a little bit, but like, he comes back in, like, swinging in the rain and crying and whatever, and he's looking at the letter right before he ends up in the cocoon,
Mm-hmm.
and I thought that, like, the letter was gonna get messed up. That,
Right.
like,
I,
he wanted to give the letter to MJ, and at some point he was going to, and he wasn't going to be able to, because now the letter is
it's
illegible.
messed up. It can't read
Absolutely
it.
not.
And yep.
Greatest ink ever. Clearly. You know what I'm saying? Um, Jokes, how do you feel about, like, where we are, where Peter is at the beginning of this film?
Uh I know the term of saying this may sound a little weird to people, but I find it to be the word is perfect. Like, this is really where Peter Parker has been outside of, like, say, take the Daily Bugle out of it, which is probably the only element necessarily that's not in things right now. But clearly the time has passed. My man has figured out a lot of stuff on his own to be able to be, quote unquote, the best friendly neighborhood Spider-Man that he could possibly be.
It's
Yeah.
the Stark paper. That's facts.
Edward said
Like,
that Stark paper, you know.
so I think him being able to right now, being in isolation and not having, not really having friends, not having anyone that's around him that would take away that other time to be Peter Parker. It's like he is full on at this point, he is Spider-Man. So,
Yeah.
keeping, having the police side like on the phone, obviously has built that type of relationship that he can just have on his phone. Police siren tracker, when things go down, gets that alert. He can hop out the window, swing, go wherever. Like, I think
He's put in the
seeing
work.
he's now put in the work. He's showing now what he's learned, all the different things. Web shooters have been upgraded. I like that there's elements of, he has an AI. Like, obviously, I feel like Peter's smart enough to build something like that. I'm sure he's had remnants of the old one that he could build off of. But we started to see Pete having to flex the muscles on his own, not having Stark tech, not having any of that stuff, being able, at least probably took the goggles off the previous mask, whether I don't think that's the same mask to be able to put on there. He's really having to do on his own, which I really think for Peter Parker is perfect because this is where you start to really see what he is capable of doing on his own without necessarily, he had mentors. He had Tony Stark. I'm sure he learned a lot from it. But now being on your own, you can take some of that stuff and tie it into what it is you're doing now,
Well,
but you got to be out here and do what you do best. You're not trying to be a Tony Stark. You're not trying to be. I don't want to say he's looking as at this point. He's not looking for people to really, just to say, "Oh, excellent job," and all. Like, he's not. He's doing it because it's the right thing to do. With great power comes great responsibility, and really living into that motto at this point.
yeah. He's I mean, look, I think that coming in at a place where Spider-Man is peak popularity, right?
Mm-hmm.
You see them, there's news, the news is going on in the background, crime is way down. I'm gonna tell you what's funny. Like they were like, crime is way down since Spider-Man has been, this percentage, da da. And I was like, hey man, Batman could never.
Never, no,
He could
Batman
never, dog.
can't
He could never. Um,
ever.
um, crime is way down. The people love him. Not that like Daredevil wasn't in the background taking down Wilson Fisk, but just like
But they was like he's taking down like crime bosses, and they're like he's taking
correct.
down the
He
big.
took down like five of the top five crime bosses or whatever. Again, he's doing the work, right?
Mm-hmm,
And to catch him at the height of Spider-Man popularity,
mm-hmm,
the city loves him. Spider-Man can do no wrong, and at his peak low level, his peak sadness, right? Of I'm stuck all alone. My best friends are graduating from school. We were supposed to do this together. You're listening to this, say, hey, we're only, we're graduating in a couple of months,
oh,
and
that don't smack like we kind of I had an idea that there was going to be that time jump thing we were going to see, but literally just breezing straight through college just to establish that, what this dude has now been Spider-Man at least with like the 5 or 6 years outside of it, and at least four of those during like a standard college term, I'll say. At least four of those years, he was on his own, not having anyone to
didn't have
back him or
anybody.
to do anything.
Right. That's again, peak of Spider-Man's height, the bottom of Peter's like loneliness. Like,
Hmm.
you know what I mean? Those two things juxtaposed against each other. Um I really I really think it's a smart way to kind of come in and kind of point out that like you can be at the height of everything and you never really know what a person's dealing with on the inside, right? And it's
Hmm.
really cool that at least if nothing else, he had the police officer, the detective who was like, yo, man, like maybe you need to take a break and you
Take
still
a
getting
break. Yeah.
headaches, but like take care of yourself, that kind of thing. Like knowing that like he's still a person deep down inside. Dom jumped in and said, Black Eyes and No Venom, missed opportunity, but I love the movie. Hey, listen,
Hey,
I
I
don't
get
think it's
it.
a. I think you're incorrect about that missed opportunity. I think that opportunity is coming in Secret
Coming.
War, and that's
Yes.
where
The
Spider-Man
perfect.
gets the original. That's where Spider-Man gets the original Venom suit. So that's where they would do it. Like that's the point at
I'm
which
good
it's
with it.
supposed to happen. He's at his peak. He goes off to. This movie is very sharp at telling you that what Spider-Man does is
Hmm.
small potatoes. And what the Avengers do and other heroes are doing are the big
Big
potatoes.
potato.
This movie is letting you know the big potatoes are coming and that
Hmm.
when they come, Spider-Man will have to be involved. And
Got
his
to be ready.
involvement in those big potatoes will absolutely put him in the position to get
Hmm.
that Venom suit. And it will be the right way for it to happen right before they kill him. And we'll get to that. Orlando, let's talk about cameos
Hmm.
because there have been cameos throughout the Spider-Man movies. This run of Spider-Man movies, he started out as a cameo.
Hmm.
But this is like how you do it if you're going to do it. It needs to feel like it's natural. It needs to feel like it makes sense. It needs to feel like it's not forced and it feels that way. When the Punisher shows up while Peter is chasing a tank down the streets of New York, it feels natural that the Punisher would show up, but also that they already know who they are,
Hard
and that
dog.
literally Peter is calling him by his first name, Frank, which again, for me, is one of the most important things about the MCU and how well they establish and do character development. They call each other by their first names.
Hmm.
Nobody's running around going, oh, the Punisher. They're saying Frank,
Frank.
right? He's called Frank, get out of here, Frank. Ugh, this guy, I can't stand him. Like that kind of thing. Um, Dom says, I feel that. I can say you're right. I really want Venom in the MCU. I'm just impatient. Let me tell you something. I agree. Cause I wanted to. Like I'm a Venom guy and
Hmm.
I hate what Sony has done with Venom in the franchise. We know that a small piece of the symbiote got left in the end
Hmm.
credit scene in one of the movies. So we know it exists within the universe. It's just a matter of how it ends up being that Peter
Yeah, it
gets it,
becomes a whole
right?
entire, yeah. Because that is a
Um
whole, wherever he left it at, that ain't nowhere close to New York City.
some
And
bar somewhere
yeah,
like
so it's going to have to, hop a ride on like 50 different people to make its way to the city. And I don't know. That's a whole
it
nother
would
story.
not have surprised me if damage control had managed to get
Has,
it in some way.
yeah,
And that would kind of make sense.
makes sense.
Um Now, cameos. Punisher,
Hmm.
look, Bernthal is incredible.
Amazing. And
The role he was built to play.
dog, and the Punisher, with this being obviously, this is not an R-rated movie thing
Mhm.
at all. They were still able to let him be the Punisher that he is in the show and in the movie. Like, obviously, getting his mouth off and like just being able to talk the way that Frank would do in the show. And then, of course, just he got guns, gonna shoot people. He wants to do, he
Yeah.
got to do things his way. Like,
Candace said Punisher and Spidey was the best duo.
listen, amazing. And I want to see however Spidey saved his life, like even if it's like a short, like I need like
Yeah.
that, I need to be able to see. Like that would be just an amazing little side story that we could do.
Banner. I mean, again, look, Banner was on the wall in Peter's science class with the pictures of Einstein and all the great scientists, right? Banner is somebody that Peter has looked up to forever. So for Banner to now have a job at ESU, at Empire State University, for him to kind of sneak in and say, this is the person who I need to talk to
Hmm.
kind of figure out what my next steps are. It makes sense. Again, it doesn't feel like overstepping. It
Yeah.
doesn't seem like it's doing too much. And the way that it gets set up, that he ends up becoming the Hulk, it works. It makes perfect sense. And again,
Fluid.
there's not too much of him on screen. It doesn't take away from
Oh,
Spidey
it
being
was
Spidey.
enough. It was enough, and to reestablish the Hulk the way that the Hulk should be. Like, obviously, we get to see the half breed, like the Bruce Hulk, that merging piece of it that he did within Endgame and Infinity War. And I was kind of like, when we saw that, I was kind of like, man. But once he completely lost it and was like, Jean, like she broke something, and he just turns into, the Incredible Hulk. Even Spider, like, I didn't know you could get that big. Like, because
Yeah, I mean,
he had never
it's
seen Bruce outside of, just, being Hulk.
well, I mean, not in person
Mm-hmm.
anyway, right? Cuddy said I couldn't hold my laugh when Peter webbed Frank's mouth to stop him from cursing. uh, yeah, Kay said that was funny, Cuddy, for sure. Andrew asked, how much do you think Disney and Sony had to pay Universal for Hulk being in this? They don't.
Don't.
So while Universal technically does still have
Mhm.
the rights to make Hulk movies, Marvel has the right to use Hulk in movies, which is why
Mhm. A
there have not been any
standalone. Mhm.
standalone Hulk movies because they don't have the rights to do standalone Hulk movies. But they're allowed to use the character in the movies
In
as much as they
anything. Yep.
want, which is why they've done it. But that's why we didn't get a Planet Hulk, and it's why we didn't get
Mhm.
a World War Hulk, and they were kind of like Planet Hulk was kind of forced into that Thor movie, which is also the only reason why I think Thor has 4 movies. I think it was because they really wanted to try to get some version of Planet Hulk into the
Mhm.
MCU. And I think that they had a plan for there being a World War Hulk, which we can kind of get to some speculation, but I think actually they could still do some version of
Mhm.
that. In whatever battle world ends up being in Secret War. So
Mhm.
we could get there. Yeah, Dom said World Breaker. Yeah,
Warbreaker.
he's not World Breaker, right? But this is a this is a Banner who worked really hard to get control of the Hulk, to have Smart Hulk, who we
Mhm.
got introduced to, and everybody hated it. But it was a necessary thing. And the Savage Hulk or the Incredible Hulk, Smart Hulk is like 7'5". Hulk is 8'5". It's another foot. So it's a different version of Hulk. I
Mhm.
want to make something very clear. We watched a Peter Parker Spider-Man who was not at full I got my arachnid strength
Mhm.
eat shots from that Hulk.
Yeah.
When I tell people that Spider-Man Peter Parker is much stronger than they realize, eating those joints.
Yeah.
Slim was basically holding like a quarter of a building like and not falling. You know what I'm saying? Like it's pretty serious. Um Yelena Belova, bro,
That was a nice little surprise.
best
Awesome
office
office.
ever. Take off your clothes, Slim, because
Hey, listen, make
I need
sure
to
you
know
don't
you
got
don't
no
have any weapons.
weapons.
Um, look, I like her just kind of having a quick cameo.
Mhm.
Again, we are using the most popular character in the world, let alone the most popular superhero in the MCU, to make sure that people know here are these other characters. So
Mhm.
if you didn't catch Thunderbolts, didn't see Hawkeye, didn't watch Black Widow, or you watch one of them and haven't seen other things, oh yeah, her. Wonder what's going on, right? We deal with the big potatoes. She uses the words New Avengers. The New Avengers do big
Mhm.
potatoes. What you're talking about is small potatoes. Again, we are using this character to kind of set up all the things that are around
Mhm.
us. This is the most important character they have because it's the most popular character they have, right? So now we have Punisher. That goes off into a world that is so violent and so rated R that kids shouldn't really have anything to do with, but that's for the parents. We have Hulk. who we remember from years ago, the MCU. Let's bring him back and make him the Hulk that you remember, the one who got bested by Thanos and you were mad because he didn't show back up to, you know what I mean, to step back up. Let's bring him into play. We have the replacement for Black Widow in Yelena Belova. Again, if you didn't see Thunderbolts, make sure you go and you check that out because their
Mm-hmm.
end credit scene had something to do with Fantastic Four and blah. Like, they're using him and it's making it make sense. I think these
Mm-hmm.
people are being mind controlled. I might know somebody. And again, this is a Peter who is established. Like,
Mm-hmm.
he's got police officers on speed dial, the key to the city. Like, people don't know he's Peter Parker, but they know Spider-Man. So
Mm-hmm.
him being able to have a contact that is a Yelena makes sense
Yep.
in the world that we're in, and in the time that he's done what he's done. So I feel like there's some sort of mind control or something like that happening. Maybe she'll know something about it. I'm going to her. It makes sense. Again,
Mm-hmm.
they don't overdo it. The scene is hilarious. You know what I mean? It's really well done. He's not alone anymore. I seen his belly button. Like that's
Oh,
that's
that
where we
was
are. Um, Bill Metzger. Now, Bill Metzger is not a super well known X-Men character, but he is an X-Men character. Um, and he is a mutant in the comics. He is a mutant hating, like, he's that guy. He's almost like Stryker. If you remember the original
oof.
X-Men films, he's sort of along those lines of, like, doing a lot of, like, showing up on TV and talking about it and
Mm-hmm.
that kind of thing. He's a good foil, this character. He's a secret villain, technically, if you will, in this movie. And then, of course, the elephant in the room, Sadie Sink, Jean Grey. All right, look,
One of the worst kept secrets.
definitely one of the worst kept secrets. Um, but still a secret nonetheless. And
Mm-hmm.
here's what's important about that. It's a terribly kept secret if you're one of us. If you're in a circle like this, if you watch shows or podcasts like this, if you pay attention to all this kind of stuff, the writing was on the wall. We pretty much knew who it was.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're just like I love Spider-Man. I love Tom Holland.
Yep.
Man, I love Zendaya. I love the fact that Tom Holland loves Zendaya and Zendaya loves him back. You like I love the fact that Tom Holland and John Bernthal are also in the Odyssey right now. Let me go see this. If you're just kind of a casual, I really like Spider-Man, my kids really like Spider-Man, and then you hear Jean Grey get dropped in this, you had no idea it even
Mm-hmm.
could be a thing. You are so surprised. It is such a great cameo, and it's the super duper early stages
Mm-hmm.
of who she is and what she can do. And if you're going to introduce the X-Men, again, you're using the most popular character
Mm-hmm.
to reintroduce the most popular team. That's that's where we are. Um, I love it because I don't really want us to rehash the old X-Men. Again, I
Mm-hmm.
want new X-Men. I like a younger kind of a run. I'm very interested to see, where it goes, and how it pans out exactly. Um, I think that the reveal is done really well. So
Agreed.
we got to talk about Peter and MJ and Ned. Um, the back and forth about there's always like multiple things that are happening to Peter at any given time. It is the curse of being Spider-Man.
Yeah.
So again, you're having this great success. You have this new thing that's happening that you can't quite pin down. You have this thing that's happening to your body that you can't quite figure out what's going
Mm-hmm.
on. Senses going wild. Again, this is the first time we really see a Spider-Man whose spider senses allow him to see things in slow motion.
Mm-hmm.
Tom Holland, you get it the first time he gets in a fight in the cafeteria after he gets his power. Like the next day, everything else around him is in that same slow mo. We built up to this. where he is with MJ and with Ned, and kind of having consistently followed them and watched their growth in school and all that kind of stuff, to just so happen to run into Ned at the same place he goes consistently to get flowers from,
Flowers.
and just go, let me follow him. Let me just go see what he's doing. You know what I mean? Um, and going to the apartment, going to the party, finding out Ned made the spider tracker, right? And then seeing who Ned thinks Spider-Man might be.
That was it's like it makes you wonder how, with them not knowing Peter, how the element of Peter being removed from all of those instances just change, the way that they remember certain things. Like obviously with Flash and the way that he's probably been mouthing off the whole entire time, he's one of those that just kind of makes it obvious that, you know what? You talking all that smack. You probably is Spider-Man out here. Like it's interesting to think how events probably played out with just clearly not knowing who Peter Parker is. I don't know if he just became the student that's just like super quiet in the corner and no one just paid him any mind or anything like that.
I mean, you got to think
Like,
about all the things that would have had to have been erased, right? Like, there's no moment from Homecoming where Flash is calling him Penis Parker. There's no moment where
mm-hmm,
they're going, "Oh, Peter knows Spider-Man," and then, "Oh, well, then why don't you invite him to the party?" You like
mm-hmm,
all of that's gone, right? So, like, technically, who Flash is as a person probably doesn't change, but who he picked on probably
mm-hmm.
was Ned. You know what I mean? Maybe somebody else, but probably, was Ned for all intents and purposes. Um, yeah, I mean, you kind of have to wonder, like, who does Ned think he built the Death Star with? But Peter never really helped him build it. He was supposed to, and he didn't. He
He
showed up
broke
late.
it in his room.
But that's how he found out who he was, right? Like, you know, getting to that point, running into MJ, the friendly neighbor thing, um, and then, seeing her kiss her boyfriend and just be distraught, right? Because MJ being who she is, she's got no social media. So
Mm-hmm.
he only knows what's going on through Ned and only sees her when she happens to show up in something that Ned's doing. So he doesn't know this. He doesn't realize this. Otherwise, it probably would be something that would have been posted and might have been known and, whatever. Um, and it's the kind of thing that sends him into the kind of frenzy, the traumatic experience that begins to trigger this next event in him
Mm-hmm.
where now we're going into organic webs. I'm not a fan.
I get it. Like I get it because at the core, like, and it's been changed. It's been changed a couple of times over the years, but the web shooters was one of Peter's best inventions to show that intellect that he have to be able to creating the web shooters themselves. Probably not necessarily the hardest thing, but to create that specific fluid to be able to use that's like a spider web that literally like and Ned described it. Yeah, Ned described it pretty much to a T. It's in the canisters. It's always rotating, and so it stays in this liquid form until it shoots out and it becomes the actual webbing. It's tied directly to Peter Parker and that intellect that he has. So I can understand from that aspect of it. But I guess in order to kind of give that extra relation to like say Tobey Maguire's Peter Parker. They kind of like, what, let's go ahead and give him the organic webs. Because like, I've said like on the show that maybe I was thinking that they were gonna go the man spider route. I think this is probably them trying to take pieces and be able to use with the current variation that we have with Peter Parker and not going down that full on route. You know, him being in the cocoon that he watched the he watched the spider videos on becoming the baby spider growing up and becoming an adult spider, so being able to kind of use those comparisons between Peter and the actual spider, I think it was a pretty good play on it without having to go like the full on man spider route.
Yeah, man, look, I hate it, and I'm not gonna stop hating it. But again, given the timeline that we have and
Hmm.
having shown that this is a thing that Peter was able to create in high school, he's that smart. Again,
Hmm.
we tend to forget when you're around the Tony Starks and the Reed Richards of the world
Hmm.
how smart Peter Parker actually is. And so we've established it. Like the web shooters is one of the things that did I think help establish who he was, but it also is the kind of thing that created in the comics. It was like plot armor, if you will. Like I'm gonna run
Hmm.
out of, I don't have enough web fluid left. I'm gonna run out, kind of thing, right? And so like you kind of remove that by having it. Andrew said Ned has an energy drink addiction, and that's how it becomes Hobgoblin.
Hey, look. Or you know what? One of these days he think he drinking an energy drink, and it's I don't know. It ain't that type of poison. It's some other type of poison.
I mean, he could become the Hobgoblin. It's possible. Um,
It sowed that thread.
I don't
I
think
mean,
we have that kind of time though. I think that this Spider-Man's time is up.
hmm.
I think Secret War is it, and maybe one other film. Tom Holland has said in an interview that like he would love to have the opportunity to play the mentor to a
Hmm.
Miles or a Gwen, either one, if he had the chance to do it before he gives up the mantle.
Hmm.
And again, as I've said, like we've had the discussion before, I think that the fact that Miles exists in this universe
Hmm.
already means that this Peter Parker Spider Man has to die in order for him to become Spider Man. I'm almost positive that the little kid that he swung down and swooped up and
And saved the
saved
nap.
was Miles, in the exact same way that in the first Iron Man film,
Tony
the
Stark
kid that
did.
had the Iron Man mask on that Tony went and saved was Peter Parker. So I think full circle, that's the direction that they're going, and that's what it'll be. Um, which again means that he's probably gonna have to he's probably gonna have to die. Or spoiler for the end credit scene, one of the other Peters, because there's a Spider Verse and we know it, and I'm
Hmm.
pretty sure the Spider Verse is going to be tied into the MCU at some point in some
Hmm.
way. Um, that he ends up being the Peter B. Parker, the old Spider Man that shows up after the other Spider Man in that Miles' reality doesn't survive.
Hmm.
You know. Anyway, probably the thing that I dislike the most about this
Hmm.
is I don't like the idea that Spider-Man is responsible for building the thing that allows them to cap mutants' powers.
The hip.
I hate that.
I get it. Like, because the first thing when they started talking about like inhibitors and stuff like that, first thing for me that popped up, I was thinking was like Mister Sinister, and I was like, oh, is he going like obviously not in this movie, but like does that clearly that tech is probably going to end up falling into the wrong hands in some shape or form.
I mean,
I'm
they already have
guessing,
it.
and it's going to be kind of like eventually it'll tie back to P like, oh snap, and me trying to reserve and keep myself in check, I have now created this problem that's going to end up servicing later on down the road.
Or he
Um,
was also trying to put her in check.
yeah.
Like it just like there's no two ways about it, right? And I do like the warning that he gets from the Hulk, right? Like, how would you decide what are the bad parts?
Mm-hmm.
What if you're trying to suppress something that needs to be out? How do you decide what are the good parts and what are the bad parts? What we should and shouldn't suppress? And then creating something that's universal that just literally snaps
It
onto the
just
neck. I mean,
works.
literally, it's just like the collars. It just shuts down that part of their DNA. Look, I will say this. You do need. I think that the comics and the cartoons have done a very poor job of ever truly explaining why inhibitor collars work. Like,
Mm-hmm.
they just do.
They
Like,
just
if
do.
you're watching the original 90s X-Men or whatever, the inhibitor collars are just a thing that are there. They snap them on the mutants' necks, and
All
mutants
the
can't
powers
use
are
their
gone.
powers, and we just don't really, like, we don't really dig into it. So what I will say I like about it is there being a natural reason for
Mm-hmm.
someone to try to do it for themselves, to control themselves or to keep
Mm-hmm.
themselves, and then having a need for that thing to try to help them do good or what they thought was good, and then that good thing be the wrong thing, right? We've jumped to a conclusion, or we've trusted the wrong people, or however you want to lay that out, but that's where we are. um but the idea that there could be an entire community of mutants that end up hating Spider-Man because
Mm-hmm.
he has done the thing. At the same time, if you recall, like the second X-Men film was all about there being a quote unquote cure.
Mm-hmm.
And many mutants, many people wanting said cure. Because if a Jean Grey exists, if a Kamala Khan exists, and we know that she
Mm-hmm.
is a mutant, at this point, clearly other mutants exist, and they exist within this world. There have to be people who don't look like humans, quote unquote,
Mm-hmm.
right? That would love to have something like that, right? And so again, one of the things we love about X-Men is that it examines that back and forth um of what's right and what's wrong and what's okay and what's not, and people who are affected by it actually feeling both ways about it. um Andrew said inhibitor chips not compatible with Hulk's.
My man, he was so mad. Why is your skin so tough? Like,
Bro, this is a man who literally said to the Punisher, "What are you going?" He said,
what are
"I
you
knew I should
gonna
have brought a
do?
bigger gun." And he's like, "What are you going to do? Tickle him to death? Bullets don't pierce his skin."
So you think a needle from the inhibitor
Yeah.
chip is gonna like pierce his skin?
What
Like,
made you think that was going to work? Like, you had to know that wasn't going
hey,
to work.
listen,
But
shout out to Frank though. Like, as much as we know that dude was probably afraid to just roll in there and just start shooting at the Hulk,
well, what else could
like,
he do, bro? Let me just say that, like, let me say that Frank Castle sliding into a room in slow mo, shooting a go, like, I don't
ooh,
know what that noise is that he keeps making, but I just hear go, "Hey, use gas!" Like, I don't know what Slim is doing, but that's how he shoots. That's how he knows. Like, it's going down. Cuddy says,
oh,
witness protection moment. Why did Bruce need an inhibitor type device if he was Smart Hulk the last few times on
mm-hmm,
screen? So I think that the inhibitor device was designed to help keep him in check
mm-hmm,
because he didn't have complete control. Um I like we know that he got control of Hulk enough to be Smart Hulk by the time Endgame came
mm-hmm,
around, and that he had a certain level of control over it enough when the She-Hulk show happened.
mm-hmm,
Also, that blood of his is what caused her to become the Hulk. And so, it could have also been a thing where it was like, if I'm going to teach classes, I need to be able to teach classes as a person. Like, I need to be able to teach
mm-hmm.
classes as Banner. and not in that form. And we never really see him when he got into the Smart Hulk form. He stayed that way. Like we didn't
Mm-hmm.
see he wasn't going back and forth between the two. So what I think it would be, if there needs to be an answer for it, and I think there does, would be that like in order for him to get a job, there are no Avengers anymore. In order for
Hey,
him to get
listen,
a job, right,
daily
at a
life.
university, it was like not as the Hulk. And
Nah,
even imagine if he was trying to teach classes as Smart Hulk.
dog. Hey, listen, I'll keep it on a simple wavelength. Like, if he was going to be able to go in any building, any house, anything, Smart Hulk wasn't probably fitting through any doors or anything in there. And I mean, that's just a part, that's just a daily life type of scenario to be able to do it. But like you said, like, even though he's Bruce Banner, it's like the Hulk showing up, Smart Hulk showing up. I feel like it just takes eyes off of anything else in the room, in the area, like everything. Just like the whole class obviously knows who Bruce Banner is. The only thing we wanted to focus on was just asking him questions about, being in the Avengers and all this. My man was like, listen, I got to teach y'all physics. I got to teach y'all something out here, because like that's what I'm here to do now. It's like
Right,
telling stories from the old days is cool and all, but I gotta
having
teach
Cindy
y'all.
Moon, it's Cindy Moon, dog. Having Cindy Moon Silk show up again to ask him about it and ask the question that everybody was asking: why didn't Thanos just make more resources? You know what I mean, or whatever. There is no
I
answer
love
to
that
that
though.
question. The answer to that question is Hulk smash. Um, Andrew
He's a
said, "I guess
madman.
Scar, his son, cost a lot to raise, so he needed a job." I mean,
I
wouldn't how are you feeding that kid?
can't
I'm just
imagine how
asking.
much a regular
There's no.
regular
You gotta
kids.
remember that Tony's been dead for years. This movie takes place in 2028, right? We are a 4-year jump. Tony's been dead for years. There's no start money. There's no like that. That's gone. There's nobody. There's no one fronting the Avengers. The last time we saw Smart Hulk eating, he was holding a taco like this and sharing it with Ant Man. You know what I'm
Hey,
saying? Like
bro.
it was just like how is he? He can't feed that child. Um, yeah. I mean, I think that's really what that comes down to. I want to talk about what I think is probably the funniest part in this entire movie, and it is Peter going on the rooftop, having his senses overload, and trying to gain control over being able to spin webs and losing control of it and almost throwing up uh at the sight of his own
Webbing.
yeah, I don't know. Cuddy said Piper's still a boss lady. Stark money never ends. Let me tell you something, Cuddy. Piper don't care about none of that.
That's her. That's her.
Piper is taking care of their child.
That's it.
You know what I'm saying? Like she's not funding and feeding the Hulk. And funding him and feeding him to do what? Stark Tower's gone. What is Stark Enterprise doing? What are they making?
Mm-hmm.
Where's the money? You know what I mean? Like, what does she do? Because she was running a company that was based on things he created. He
Mm-hmm.
was the brains, she was the business. You know,
And
I'm
listen, they
positive
made.
there was enough. Let me tell you something. Whatever that man's insurance policy was like, she's fine. Like
She's
they're fine.
good.
She don't have to be a boss, but she was signing checks after the fact. So like we're not.
Uh huh.
But which brings me to another point, and this is a very important point of contention. Jokes.
Mm-hmm.
Where is Peter Parker getting money from?
Clearly he ain't taking pictures right now, so he ain't making no odd job little money doing that right now.
Yeah, Cuddy, he had some web discharge
That's
for
fact.
sure.
So like, and I don't see
That
him,
Stark Enterprise into MCU goop.
and
Fact.
I don't see him making any money. Obviously, helping the police or doing anything like that. unless he has some type of extra fun that even if Tony put aside, nobody knows who Peter Parker is, so he wouldn't probably even be able to walk in a bank and withdraw that type of money anyway.
Bro, I'll be real.
So,
Like, this is one of the reasons why I couldn't give this joint a 10. And like, it's a
uh,
stupid thing. It doesn't really matter. But let me just tell you something. Slim got a lot of tech. And if they didn't listen, all it honestly would take
mhm.
would be like, I don't know, a very short clip or something of him. Like, this is a kid who used to like dumpster dive and was pulling like DVD players out of the
Yeah.
trash. Like, I might throw away a perfectly good DVD player, right? Like, I could live with that. You know what I'm saying? But
Hmm.
and we know that he's smart and that he knows how to build things. We know he can come up with stuff. He spent a lot of time around Tony Stark. He has his own AI. Like, there are things. What is he doing to make money? How is he paying his rent? I just, that's it. That's all I want to know is how is he paying his rent?
Because
I
that was
thought
at
for a
court for
second,
Peter Parker.
listen,
It was
I
like, my
thought for a
man,
second it would be great if Aunt May had, you know, life insurance and but nobody knows who Peter Parker is. I don't even know if he can prove that,
I know.
but at the same time, at the same time, Peter Parker does exist.
Hmm.
And Aunt May is already dead. So the fact that anybody who knew Peter Parker forgets Peter Parker doesn't mean that like his IDs don't work.
Hmm.
So here's what I think. I had to really work this out for myself. Here's what I think. Andrew said, how's he had that new Samsung flip phone? Hey, listen, man.
Hey, listen.
Spider-Man out here getting deals. Getting
He got
Spider-Man
the key
deals.
to the city. They
Listen,
probably,
I
everybody probably,
wish that all those balloons and all that stuff that was getting sold, that he was getting some kind of money from it. Here's what I
hmm,
really think. Even though the world forgot that Peter Parker existed, he still
hmm,
has IDs. He still is Peter Parker, and people don't know that Peter Parker was Spider-Man. But if you remember at the end of the last movie, what he did was he had the book for getting his GED so he could
hmm,
finish school. So that allows him to do that and would technically allow him to enroll in school once he did that. In order for him to get the book or to take the test to do his GED and all that kind of stuff, he still has to be able to prove that he's Peter Parker. His
valid.
it's people forgot that he existed. It doesn't mean that he didn't exist. The spell isn't that Peter Parker never existed. It's that everybody forgot that he existed. So what
Hmm.
that means is that he still has a valid birth certificate, which means that not only was there likely a lot of money, a good life insurance policy from Aunt May, but
Hmm.
there was also probably life insurance policies from both of his parents.
Parents.
And I want to take this moment to talk about what some of the theories are about this Peter Parker. So if you look at his ID, which they have shown multiple times,
Hmm.
his birthday is August 10th, 2001. Okay. This is 1 month to the day before 9/11. And the theory is that his parents died in 9/11, that both of his parents that they worked in some sort of enforcement or first
Oh,
responder or something like that, and that his parents actually passed away in 9/11. That's the theory. And I'm going to be honest, I kind of like that theory. I like that theory better than
oh.
his parents were up to something nefarious and somewhere or whatever and blah. And that would be why he ended up having to go live with his aunt and his uncle Ben.
Hmm.
I like that
Ooh.
theory. So the idea that there would have been money that was set aside, life insurance money that existed, he wouldn't have been able to touch until he was 18, which at the
18.
time of his last movie, they were just finishing high school. He's just getting to being
Mm,
18, technically, right?
mm.
So at that point, maybe that money comes into play and there is some money for him sitting, plus the money from Aunt May sitting. So he might not have a job, y'all. He could be not working and might actually have a little bit of a nest egg.
Hmm. I'm not actually,
He's a really smart
that
dude. He
would
could be
be,
investing in some stocks and stuff like that somewhere. Like, I had to really come up with some things for myself to help me be like, all right,
make it make sense.
Slim is ordering DoorDash. You know what I mean? Like, he just like, he's spending money like it's nothing. Now, he's not overdoing it. He's not driving a car. He's not drawing
Yeah.
any additional attention
Never
to
have to get a
himself.
car.
He doesn't have crazy clothes or whatever. He's clearly upgraded to some sort of a. It's not a 3D printer, but it's
I
some
was gonna
sort of
say
a
I don't know
printer.
what that is. Like printing the suits and stuff. I was like, oh, okay, that ain't cheap. Like you
You
got
know,
access to that fabricator somewhere still, and you
yeah.
didn't shrunk that down to being like a 3D printer.
He's got. I think some access to some things that they haven't
Mm,
explored that part of it. But that's where I've gone with it. That's where I'm at. I've just decided that like there was a decent nest egg that was probably already set aside for him, and then also that plus whatever Aunt May, you know what I mean,
mm,
had for him, and he's just not the kind of kid. He wasn't raised to be like, well, I got all this money, I'm about to go just
right, be
whatever.
all flashed out. Hmm.
He also knows he has to make it work, right? But Slim just be walking around in the middle of the day doing nothing. So I don't know. You know what I mean? Um, but that's what I came up with. I hope y'all like that theory because that's the one. That's the one I'm
Not mad
sticking
at
with.
that. And if somehow the Daily Bugle ever becomes a play, you know what? Maybe that nest egg ends up finally running out or getting low
Mhm.
at a point, and then he finally says, I got to do something to put some dollars in the pocket because otherwise, Spider
Right.
Man really gonna be living up in a rooftop somewhere.
I mean, this is a Peter Parker who doesn't even take pictures. Like he doesn't even like he's
Mm-hmm.
never had like an interest. He doesn't shoot photos. He doesn't like. There's none of that. He doesn't exist. This Peter Parker is not a photographer. He doesn't do it. He doesn't write stories. He didn't work for the newspaper. He wasn't on their news broadcast at the school or whatever. He's just a smart
Mm-hmm.
kid. So none of that exists. He's a tinkerer. He can make things. You know what I'm saying or whatever. But him working at the Bugle, that's not in the cards that I can tell
Yeah.
for this version of this character. It doesn't exist. Um. All right, so we have to talk about you know the Hulk fight, which I think was really good. There is a moment where he says, "I'm your friend. It's me, Peter." He used
Mm-hmm.
his name.
Yep.
There was clearly some version of recognition in there that caused the Hulk to stop, then look and see a reflection of himself and go, "This isn't what I want to do, or who I want to be, or whatever." And I love and hate at the same time that this Hulk made the decision once again to try to kill himself. He was holding on to that building and he looked him in the eye, he looked Spider-Man in the eye, and he let go and chose to fall. And honestly, probably hoped it would work this time, but had to know it wasn't gonna. You know what I mean? Um, we get Jean captured.
Mm-hmm.
Punisher has no idea. uh, is that my gun? You know what I mean? No idea what just happened. And we leave this situation victorious to walk back into Frank's home, his boat, Golden Girl, and find MJ reading the letter with the best ink and paper
Mm-hmm.
ever made. Were you gonna tell me about this? I'm gonna talk to him. Take the mask off.
I need to talk
Reserve
to
that.
Peter Parker.
I mean Maynard. He talked to Maynard. Um, how you feel about that moment, Jokes?
It seems I didn't think that was quite the way that something like it was going to actually play out. Like, but Peter did it to us, so like leaving the letter there. I think that probably played out as best as it probably could. Like, I know in her reading the letter, there was a part of Peter that was hoping that after finally that was out there, he could explain things to a certain degree that whether it was she would either remember something or her just being like, I felt like there was this void in my life that maybe you're that piece of the void, like expecting to maybe to hear something like that for her to just straight out, I don't know you. I don't love you. I think was the final thing for Pete to realize that, you know what? Hey, the spell worked. Hey, the spell really worked. Like it
Mm,
was, it was a very real moment. And
Heather said it was a very real moment. That's right.
I thoroughly enjoyed this version of MJ, without having, Peter in her life,
Hmm.
and to see, kind of that flip side on how she has become without having Peter slash Spider-Man in life. Obviously, well, let me say that without Peter in life, because obviously Spider-Man has still been there and has saved her and Ned a multitude of times. It's I thought that played out very well. Like, and even though, she's like she didn't love it when she was like, I'm gonna dip out. For her to come back and be like, I don't have a phone. Can you take me home? Almost like there was a moment where it's just like, maybe I should talk to this or hang around this dude for a little bit longer or something like that. Like, because she could have easily probably gone out. And you're in New York, taxi cabs on every corner. I know Frank living next to the bay or whatever, but I think that scene was super important to establish the fact that the spell did what it was supposed to do.
Hmm.
She acknowledged the fact that, what, hey, the wizard did his thing, because I don't remember any of that in any shape or form. I think that was the best way for them to cement that this wasn't going to be a flip a switch on and off type of thing in this moment. And like,
Yeah. I also think, like, very subtly, what's important about it is that it tells you that Jean wasn't lying when she was in her head. Hold on. Andrew said, with the Jean Grey fake out, and in MJ, someone thought she remembered and clapped when uh when they went what? I personally felt like Kay said that was the worst. His face was mad tight. Yeah, it was, and it should have been right.
it
Like,
should have been.
again, I think that, again, it led some credence to what Jean was saying when she was like, "There's no thoughts of you in here."
Hmm.
Like, she not thinking about you at all, and that making him angry enough to almost hurt MJ, because he definitely grabbed her, like, by her,
By the
like,
throat,
yoked
pretty
her
on
up,
pretty.
like, get out of there, right, kind of thing. Um, I think it was dope. Tobias says, just came out from seeing the movie. It made me so giddy to watch. I feel like I'm on a high. Such a great movie.
Yeah,
I agree.
yeah. Hmm.
I agree. Look, the I also think in that moment, I feel like she was lying a little bit.
Mm.
I think that even though she didn't really remember, she had said to Ned when they talked about her turning down the job that she felt like there was something bigger for her,
Yeah.
like there was something
Hmm.
more out there, like something was missing, right? And I'm wondering if, in her having the time to read the letter, seeing his face, having that knowledge come to her, she told him that, but maybe also kind of agreed with the idea that, like, he did it. She understood why he did it. Like, she said that. Like, I
Hmm.
understand why you did it. And I understand why this person would feel the way that they feel about you.
Right.
But, like, I don't have any of those memories. So I don't have it. But she had also just said to him the night before, when she was trying to say that, like, what he was messing with the inhibitor chip was, like,
Hmm.
some really deep stuff. And it was like, well, have you seen what is going on with me? And she's like, well, that's not what I've seen. And he's like, what'd you
Hmm.
see? And she's like, I just see, like, a really nice guy who maybe is going through some changes. Like, she kind of had that. And they had already both kind of had some digs at the current boyfriend,
Hmm.
in that moment. Right. And so that time that she spent
Just in that
swinging
little bit
back
of
to
time.
their apartment afterwards in silence, you know what I mean? And then getting there and having that moment of, like, you
You
want to
want
come
to come up
upstairs?
and see Ned?
At
Talk to
least see
Ned?
Ned, or whatever, like, and having him come in there and then not telling him to tell Ned right away. You know what I mean? Just being like, come in and hang out. And the two of them having that moment, and then her also taking the time to go back to
Oh,
drawing and drawing them, and then drawing him without the
with
mask on.
mask on. She noticed.
For
Like,
sure.
hmm
For sure. that there was something that, like, I think she could feel that there was something missing from both of them. You know what I mean? That wasn't there. The two of them quoting Lord of the Rings to each other,
On it
yeah,
was
just
perfect.
was, building Legos together, Star Wars Legos, you know what I mean? And him just being like, "Yo, man, I'm having a great time." You know what I
It's
mean?
like the
This is the
best
most
fun
fun
he's
I've
had
had.
in years. That was just that when he said that kind of was just like, damn. Like,
Mhm.
just him
Mhm.
being Spider-Man and not, not being able to take the time for the Peter Parker self to enjoy that. Yeah, yeah, nobody knows who Peter Parker is, but that's not to say that you couldn't have, built new friendships and things like that. But obviously when you lose your best friend, your two best friends, you probably don't have that type of motivation to go back out
And
there
the
to
only
try to.
family you have left. Like you lost everything.
Hmm.
You don't necessarily think about that in the same way. Um Random stuff I find on VHS that Jean Grey last seen heading upstate to Xavier's school on the bus. 100%.
Yeah, as soon as
100% that's where she's going. Well, she's going upstate. Whether or not she's
yeah,
going to Xavier or he's just going to find her or whatever, but 100%.
she'll go up there. MCU, that's not gonna be like Magneto's home of the gift or students of the gifted or something like that. Some weird swerve on everything, but yeah, but
It'll be something. Like, clearly, like, if she's going through it and, like, Miss Marvel already had it or whatever, like, there have been a ton of theories that, like, maybe the snap has something to do with it and, whatever.
mhm,
But realistically, clearly, it's a thing that's happening and it's been happening relatively recently. And now we're at a point where we know they exist.
yeah,
So they're going to start popping up everywhere. Um, Random stuff asked, can we talk about the post credit scene, Secret Wars? 100%.
hmm,
We're definitely getting there. Like, that, the post credit scene. Look, I can't say for sure whether or not I think
hmm.
that means that that our Spider-Man has been moved
I was
somewhere
right.
to outer space, or whether or not it means that there's another
Another.
Spider-Man that has been
Mhm.
detected, right? Which I think is probably more likely.
Yeah. Just because the blip didn't disappear. I feel like if it would have been him like teleporting or something, like, even though the tracker shows, previous locations and all that, I almost feel like that blip would have disappeared and then reappeared just by itself. But they kind of made it realize that like the one is still there and the other's there. But it could be either way. But for me, like, I think it
Well, the
leans in the
tracker, here's
sequel.
the thing. In order for the tracker to do that, right? The tracker works by people reporting in the tracker where they've seen
Right.
Spider-Man, right? So it means that Ned's tracker has to exist in outer space, in, like, wherever that is.
That
It
is.
has to exist, and that
And
somebody has to
somebody.
have it and be able to report. You know what I'm saying? That they saw Spider-Man. That would have to be what that is, which means we can be looking at another version of Ned
Hmm.
or someone else who made the same tracker at that point, and they reported a sighting. It could be the very first
Hmm.
sighting in that spider tracker, and it just so
Hmm.
happens to talk. You know what I mean? Um, Random stuff said, I still want to know
Ah.
whatever happened to Eddie Brock's post credit scene with the symbiote. We talked a little bit about it earlier. I think that more than likely damage control has it somewhere.
Hmm.
So clearly, damage control has been, like, studying
Dogs.
and working on
Hmm.
individuals and other stuff for quite some time. They have shockers, gauntlets in there, which is a variation technically of um Crossbones gauntlet that he used to
Hmm.
fight Captain America in Civil War. Um, so, like, they've been collecting and kind of getting this stuff from for quite some time. I do think that there is probably a version of the symbiote that they have.
Yeah.
And at some point, in some way, whatever, again, Battle World ends up being, like, Battle World is the remaining remnants of all of the incursions
Hmm.
after they happen, held together by Doctor Doom and then put into one planet that he essentially rules over, that is divided up of, Avengers from the 1600s and Marvel zombies and So like all these other universes will kind of collide and exist
Mm-hmm.
amongst each other. And there is a possibility that we could get that Eddie Brock in this. I'll throw up, but it's possible. Um Andrew says, "Do you think we'll get another Phoenix Jean Grey?" I was sitting here like during her powers are almost Phoenix esque. I mean, I certainly hope
It's
not.
possible. I mean, like, it's possible. I don't think we need to do that story again, but obviously going into like, Secret Wars, if we're just gonna, everybody just becomes, their super powered selves or something like that. Obviously, like that's something being in space and all of that, like it could make sense, but I don't necessarily need the same stories rehashed over again. Like I think you said it best, we've gotten the X-Men, we've done all the stuff that, like, listen, if you want to acknowledge and say like at some point down the road, Jean had this moment where like she became this extra powerful version of herself with the Phoenix Force and we kind of just gloss over it, I wouldn't be mad. But I think with them being looking at starting young again and getting, I think they're gonna probably at some point retell that story again.
My thought process on it is that they would probably have rushed to a Phoenix storyline if there was still a plan to do Avengers versus X-Men, which is what I think they were heading towards when they were
Mm-hmm.
doing Kang and eventually going into Secret Wars. The Avengers versus X-Men thing happened in the comics prior to Secret War. So now that we're at Secret War, I don't think that's necessarily where we're going to go. However, what I do think is likely, and it's very possible, stay with me, y'all. Sadie Sink might not be Jean Grey. There's a part of me that thinks that Sadie Sink might actually be Madeline Pryor. She
I
might
thought
be a
about.
clone of Jean Grey, and that the X-Men that are coming, because if you think about it, all of the old X-Men are back except for Femke Jameson.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're even bringing back Rebecca Romaine as Mystique. This is a Cyclops who is mourning the loss of Jean. This is a Jean who has become the Phoenix and has died. They've already
Mm-hmm.
done it again over in another set of X-Men stories. So having characters that could come in and say, "Hey, if you're not careful, this is where you're going to end up, or this is what it could be," or like seeing her and being like, "I remember you. You look exactly like she looked when she was a child," kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing. Like there are a lot of the possibilities are technically endless. You know what I mean? Like they could kind of do whatever they want. I'll be honest, I don't like the idea of going Phoenix again because we've already seen it. And there are so many mutant stories to tell that don't have to be that. We've already cast Samara Weaver
Mm-hmm.
as the White Queen, which says to me that they are probably planning on her being a telepath that will in some way be able to maybe mentor Jean. Like we
Mm-hmm.
may not be looking at her running into Professor X. It's like it could be very different. So like to have this movie come out, have it finally be known for a fact that
Mm-hmm.
Sadie Sink was playing Jean Grey, and then almost immediately within a couple of days announce that Samara Weaving has been cast as another telepath who, for all intents and purposes, could be the person who could train a Jean Grey in
Mm-hmm.
the absence of a Professor X.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of like. Um. So yeah, I mean, look, we'll have to see. Um. I think that getting to the point where we are, where Jean experiences the loss of her sister, which is a thing in the comics, but like it's just not a thing that most people really know because nobody cares, to be honest. But it is the thing slash supposed to be it is one of the things that sometimes in her story is the thing that sets her off and really pushes her power to an upper limit. And it is possible that like there's no way that like the world will know that there's somebody out there that can do this kind of thing. She literally held a 1 mile radius
Dog.
of people at bay and was like, I could just kill them all. You know what I mean? Or whatever. Like, I'm so much stronger than I used to be the last time I tried to jump into your mind. Having her have that moment with Peter where not only is she the one that pushes him to accept being who he is, which is a key
The
like
mutant
X-Men
s
kind of
kind of,
key, right? Like
yeah.
just you got to accept who you are, and him being able to say to her, no, I get to be both. Like I am both of these things, all of these things at once, kind of accepting it. And then like nasty spraying all of his
Ow. Like
ugh,
Kamehameha,
um
I out here with the well. Like,
it's nasty. um but seeing that jump, that increased strength, her
hmm
having a keeping Wolverine's body together when Magneto took all the adamantium
and
out of him, her keeping Peter alive
yeah.
is some high level Jean Grey stuff. Like they've already done things that Jean only did when she was much better at being Jean Grey, Marvel Girl, if you
hmm
will, right? Um, so those moments alone kind of set things on it. We're on a different trajectory
hmm
for the way that we're telling this story and these stories. We can't let this end without us having a discussion about the Punisher crying in the hospital. Because I'm gonna tell you what, bro. Honestly, definitely like Peter squeezing his
Is
wrist and just
the
being like, "Ugh," like is clearly one of the funniest moments in this movie. But Peter being like, "What are you doing here? You're supposed to be there watching MJ." Yeah, she told me I gotta come here and watch you. And him being like,
she
"For
said something
real?
about
She said that? What are you blushing,
shoot
Daffodil?"
up a
Like, yo,
deal.
listen, bro. I like that moment at the end where he's like, "Are you crying?" Yeah, it is not crying.
Dog, I love
That relationship.
their chemistry, like with the two of
Yeah,
them together. Like, if we're gonna do like, I wouldn't mind seeing stuff like obviously Deadpool, Wolverine, Spider Man, Punisher. Like they're perfect too if they do something like that. I think that could be an interesting catalyst of maybe like how we do some of movies going forward. But I think the Punisher being like, you humanize the Punisher a little bit more, like as someone that you can kind of relate to. Like we went through the whole entire thing. When MJ was there, when he had, he has the images of, his wife and his daughter up there, and seeing that side. Hey, listen, him.
Punisher putting the suit on was hilarious, man.
Like, I don't know what sound. I don't know what that is. John Bernthal be doing, but like when my.
Like, yo, it's the worst, bro. Like,
But like when he was like he had an idea, it's like, bro, did you really just think? Did you just want to put the mask on? Was that was
yes,
that was that what that really was? You just wanted to get the mask on?
clearly.
But it's, their chemistry together, I think, was perfect. It was on point. Having, no, we talked about, having the Punisher coming out here to start fighting the Hulk, and Peter said, "Are you just trying to get out of fighting the Hulk?"
Yeah.
It's like, "Are you
Which
trying to get out of
Anderson
fighting
Frank
the
once
Hulk?"
took me out the whole movie. Slim was like, yo, yeah, it's ridiculous, bro. It's
But
ridiculous.
their chemistry is excellent. And if they do, like, obviously both of them coming over to, if they show up in Doomsday, I don't know, but obviously Secret Wars, being able to possibly see that again, even if it's, just moments here and there, like
Yeah.
I think that's going to be a great element. And not necessarily saying Peter has another, this is not a mentor type of thing. This is clearly Peter establishing, having a friend that he has not had
Well, he said,
as someone.
what are we friends now? Like he said, well,
Mhm,
we're friends now. Like that's also Punisher has seen his face.
mhm,
Like Frank, even him just like kind of making fun of him in that moment where he was like, "You want a cup of coffee?" and he gave him coffee. And he was like, "Yo, you can't even take the mask off to drink a cup of coffee." Like he's like, "Man, no, I'm like you, Frank. You know what I mean? Like I'm just out here." And he's like, "You think you're like me? You think if I had anybody around that I
mhm,
loved anymore, that I'd be doing this? That I'd be caught in this?" Like again, what he's brought to that character in terms of like
mhm.
humanizing that character. The comics, it's there, but really it's like, nah, he's just a killer. Like my
Death
man is just an
Machine.
angry dude who's, you know, very much Killmonger in action. You know what I mean? In some way. Um, there's a lot of really good moments I think like that are touch points for Peter, but it's almost always been in the last three movies, it's always been somebody giving those touch points to him and him
Mm-hmm.
never having touch points to give back to anybody else. And in this movie, while he
He's
is still
able.
learning, he is also providing. Like he is now taking on that role to a Jean Grey. Hey, you don't have to do this alone. I don't have anybody. You got me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you would have loved my Aunt. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And her getting that moment of knowing that like she's dealing with a person who lost the only
Who
person that they
lost?
had. She lost the only person that she had. He's doing this thing. She's doing this other thing, right? That
Mm-hmm.
consistent revenge seeking kind of thing. She's a lot more like Frank. You know what I mean? And Frank wants to take her out.
Mm-hmm.
And him having that moment of being like, yo, I've seen a lot of heroes in my day. Like I've seen it all. What you did, stepping in front of that. I don't know if you know, Jokes. I want you to understand. I looked very closely at what Frank was doing. That was a 50 cal.
That was a
You're not supposed to eat one of those.
no. That if that had been anybody else other than Spider Man,
Well,
like
in that more powerful form,
uh huh.
and also having Jean Grey's assistance, right? Like at that moment, everything else stops. Everybody else is free. She's concentrating on him, saying, look at me, pay attention to me. No, I got you," kind of thing, right? Like she kept him alive
Mm-hmm.
because he kept her alive. You know what I mean? And so she's now on a different path because she knows that there's somebody else out there that had an experience like her.
Mm-hmm.
They're different. She's different, and he had somebody to sit him down and talk to him about it. Because he really could have gone astray. And um, Andrew said my theory went out the window. I thought I see an Uncle Ben flashback.
Nah,
To be honest,
I
I don't think we'll ever get that. I don't think it's important, and I think that's the point. I think that in this universe,
Aunt May
yes,
is
he lost
the
his uncle, but Aunt May is the linchpin, and the fact that he lost Aunt May too, and technically lost everybody else. Even though at the end of this, he kind of has everybody back. Um, the 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 place that he's in, where he's now able to provide the kind of guidance that his aunt was able to give him,
mm-hmm.
up to the point where she was no longer there, technically up to her literal last breath. Um, is something that he's carrying with him, but he's also learning that the responsibility part doesn't mean he has to shoulder it all by himself. And that tells me that this is a character who they want to have. This is a Spider-Man who does eventually team up with the Avengers, teams up with the Fantastic Four, teams up with, which is what Spider-Man does, right? He knows he
Mm-hmm.
has to have friends and allies and people out there and use his network and talk to people, and he's built that kind of rapport. He already has it with the NYPD, right? The police love him, and there isn't a J. Jonah Jameson like bad mouthing
To
him.
smear
You
it
know what I
right
mean? At this
now,
point,
right?
so that's not there. It doesn't exist, and so we're dealing with a different version of this character, which again is why I'm like, I think this might be our Peter that has to die so that Miles Morales can take over. Which again is technically what, by
Happens
the
with
time
it.
Secret War is over, they both exist in the same universe. So
Mm-hmm.
Kevin Feige said a couple of weeks ago when he was asked about bringing Miles Morales into the MCU, he said, we'll definitely do it. We're going to do it live action, but we can't do it until after the
Mm-hmm.
last Into the Spider-Verse movie comes out. So once that comes out, they'll be able to do it. Well, by the time Secret War is over, that movie will be out and we'll
Mm-hmm.
be ready to go. So I'm guessing that more than likely the last Tom Holland led Spider-Man movie will probably be him mentoring
Miles
a
Morales,
Miles
which
in
I
in
listen.
some way.
If they do kill him, like it is like, but being able to finally see the two of them on screen, live action together, is going to be an amazing piece. And I'm eager to see how, like, obviously pull it together. Obviously, with the way Secret Wars can be,
Yeah,
it's an easy tie-in to bring them in. It's just having the right person to pop up on screen. Like, obviously, I'm imagining it'll be someone that we're probably not familiar with. Like I'm open either way,
Yeah,
but obviously Secret Wars is going to give us a lot. It's going to give us that new fresh start once again, kind of what in game. I don't want to. In game was like honestly was like a bow to really just to
yeah,
tie up this whole beginning piece, and now we're kind of doing that again, but it's more of a reset. I feel like.
it is. It's.
Um,
I mean, that's what Secret Wars is designed to be. It'll be
mhm,
a reset, and I don't know, man. Here's where I'm at. I love the way we ended with him making the decision to go up to Ned and tell Ned physically, "I'm your guy." Like
mhm,
it's you and I. Let's and the handshake coming back and that being the full circle moment really for them. Um, I I love that. I love that
mhm,
that's where we ended. And because it means that like we don't know exactly where it's gonna go, but we know that now it's like Ned's figuring it out, right? And if he
mhm,
can figure it out, MJ kind of knows he's kind of got some people, that are on his side that he knows that he can maybe do some things with and spend some time with. He has a mentor in, the police officer who's like, go, we can handle a robbery. Like, go get
mhm.
better. Like, make sure you're healed up,
That's real.
that kind of
That's
thing.
real cool.
Um, I like where we're at. Here's what I think. When Superman came out and we talked about
Mhm,
Superman, I really like Superman. I wasn't sure I was going to.
mhm,
But if you remember, one of the reasons why I liked it was because I think my thought was that while people were saying they were tired of superhero movies, I didn't believe that to be true, um, or that they were tired of the MCU. I think that the kind of same old thing was kind of messing
mhm,
with people, but that what set Superman apart was that Superman wasn't a superhero movie.
mhm,
It was a comic book movie, which is a lot like what we used to get. It was a comic book movie. It was bright colors and it was unforgiving in that it was just like, hey, Superman already exists. He already has powers. We're not redoing his origin. There are other heroes that exist in this world. This is what we're doing. Um, and a lot of what the MCU has been superhero movies that are
mhm,
testing other genres, right? A political thriller here, a little bit of a horror movie here, a
mhm,
heist movie comedy here, a buddy cop thing here, you know, a space adventure here, like trying all kinds of different things, right? Um, and I'm at a place right now where I think that this movie is the best combination of both of those things. I think this movie is a perfect comic book movie and a perfect superhero movie wrapped in one. I cannot I cannot wrap this up without talking about what I think Daniel did as a director with this. This is the same
mhm,
director who did Shang-Chi.
mhm,
This is a person who understands martial arts and how to shoot that action. That literally stealing, and I'm calling it stealing,
mhm.
stealing fight scenes, fight choreography, in air movement from the Insomniac
The
games.
game. Listen, executed. Uh oh. We've been good the whole entire night. Hmm? What is happening?
I don't know. That's new.
What is happening?
um, yeah. I mean, look. Random stuff said Ned's gonna get angry, become Hobgoblin. As we know, he knows his gadgets. Going through Spider-Man's web shooters. Again, I don't think
I
that
don't
happens.
know. Maybe Battle World. Maybe there
Um,
is. We use a different universe where Ned. It does happen to Ned, but I don't think this Ned is going to actually become
I
the
don't think so.
Hobbler.
Candace said the web swings were amazing. Randall said the hand got him. I mean, listen, even he was like, yo, that's cool. Like when he was fighting the hand. But this is a Spider-Man who's already defeated the hand.
Uh-huh.
He's a kid with some training, and now he's a lot stronger. Um, yeah, I don't think Ned becomes a hobgoblin. I don't think they'll go that route. Again, I don't think that's a thing that's necessary in this Spider-Man's universe in the telling of
Mm-hmm.
this story. This is a Peter Parker who has no Mary Jane. This is a Peter Parker that has no Gwen Stacy. This is a Peter Parker who knows a Betty Brant but never dates a Betty Brant.
Mm-hmm.
This is a Peter Parker who's not borrowing money from a Betty Brant. This is a Peter Parker who knows nothing about photography, doesn't shoot any pictures, has no interest in writing articles or any of that kind of stuff. Like this is such a different version um of of Spider-Man and Peter Parker than what we've seen, that I think that all of these things that we're layering onto him are not things that belong on this Peter Parker. I think if anything, the Peter Parker that we just got a spotting of is either one of the other Peters from the last movie, which
Mm-hmm.
is 100% possible, or possibly another one. That, you know what I mean? Totally possible. Cuddy said, I saw an interview when Tom said he plays Spider Man and wanted to incorporate game
Mm-hmm.
finishers in the movie. Yeah,
Yep.
he 100%. Um, Random stuff says, and Taya said, telling Peter and Ned can take it, foreshadowing. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I don't. Again, he's telling him. I think he can take it, but I don't think there's like there's no jealousy there.
Yeah.
In order for there to be like a hobgoblin or to have that kind of thing happen, like all of that is based on whatever the best friend is, whether it's Harry or it's
Mm-hmm.
Ned, being someone who is jealous of what Peter has, of what he can
Mm-hmm.
get. That doesn't exist. Even in their friendship as good friends, that already existed, or there was kind of like those characters had money or had something else going on that Peter didn't have, and they saw themselves
Mm-hmm.
as better than him for those reasons. And so there are other things that like would have to happen. So we'd have to maybe like retread the idea of it being like, oh, I'm Ned got sick, and the only thing that can save him would be Spider-Man DNA or something like that again. Like, which is the trope we went down in the Spider-Man games,
Mm-hmm.
in the PlayStation games. I don't think that's the direction that we go. If anything, what I'd like to see is Spider-Man fight Kingpin. This is a Spider-Man who has no Doc Ock. This is a Spider-Man who has no
None of the
there's no
typical.
lizard. There's
Mm-hmm.
no like none of this stuff
He got
exists. So like
Scorpion.
we're trying to grab onto things that we know
Mm-hmm.
about Spider-Man from other universes and kind of force them into this. And I just don't think that's what
Yeah.
this is. Um, again, the energy. It's the same thing that was said earlier. Ned is drinking that energy drink though. What's in that stuff? Foreshadowing Green Goblin tonic that makes the foe crazy. I mean, again, you're not wrong. They said like, oh, I found another one of these on him. Um, could there be something that maybe leads him down that path of like needing energy for something else? I guess, but I'll be honest. It would have to be written incredibly well because right now it would feel very forced.
Yeah.
And having already lost his best friends to regain his best friends,
Mhm.
only to lose that best friend
Yeah.
again,
I don't
I
think.
think it
Listen,
means I think it means Ned has to like kill MJ.
that
Yeah,
would
so
be
yo,
that would be. Listen, I think if they're gonna do anything, it would be a joke of it, and maybe like obviously as their friendship starts to establish more, maybe Ned like say like a Halloween type thing. Ned becomes the Hobgoblin, but like as I don't see them using this Ned and being able to set him against Peter Parker. I just don't see it. I think they could do
I
some
don't
little
want to
quick play.
be I don't want to be that guy, but I'm just gonna tell you that this Ned is not physically built to be Hobgoblin.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be that honest about it. Like this Ned is not physically built to be Hobgoblin. I don't think they go that route. Andrew said, "Who was your favorite villain they showed during the montage?" Probably Boomerang. I mean, it's hard to. I got a lot of love for Scorpion as a Spider-Man
Hmm.
villain. Um, the rest of those villains are kind of like whatever.
Tombstone, like it's cool to see
Tombstone was
Tombstone
dope.
with the with his connections to like the Prowler and things like those elements being out there for it. I think that one is pretty cool to kind
Hmm.
of lead to other things.
Hmm.
Um,
Literally calling him Lonnie. Also, again, you have
mhm,
to remember that like they are tying things into the MCU that most people aren't paying attention to or aren't expecting.
mhm,
So I'm in again, this is spoiler boy, so I'm in full spoiler territory right now. So if you haven't watched What If, fix yourself, go watch What If. Owatu is important.
mhm,
Go watch the most recent Spider-Man animated show.
mhm,
It there are literally scenes in that where like scene for scene it mimics the Tom Holland story, but then inserts other characters into those places where like in that story, instead of it being Tony that shows up at his apartment, it's Osborn. It's Norman Osborn
mhm.
in the apartment talking to Aunt May. But like literal beat for beat, showing up after school, finding a DVD player, walking in, same music, beat for beat, literally the same thing. It's incredible. It's a great show. And at the very end, guess who shows up in the sky? It's Owatu.
Mhm.
I don't know if y'all were paying or if you're caught up on X-Men 97, but I will tell you to look in the sky. Like they're tying things into this that are like they're pulling from some of everywhere. Did you watch the Black Panther 4 episode mini thing? No shows up in that in the sky somewhere. Just pay attention to what they're doing. Um, Random stuff also said, I hate that we got a Punisher, but no Kingpin, no mention of NYC Kingpin Mario campaign at all. Look, I'm over the fact that they didn't mention it only
Mhm.
because they showed Sheila, who was his
Mhm.
right hand, as the mayor elect,
Mhm.
showing that clearly he was around when all that stuff was happening
Yep.
and that she's now the person who's running it. She is the person that gives him the key to the city. So Kingpin's out of
This
the picture.
the time
Again,
jump throws that in there. Like,
it does.
yeah. So
It does. It that time jump kind of takes care of a lot of that kind of stuff for us. We don't really have to focus on it. I would again. I'm pulling for a Spider-Man versus Kingpin.
at some point in
I was
some
pulling for
shape,
Daredevil. My biggest disappointment with this movie is that Daredevil wasn't in it.
I mean, he in jail technically. Like, I
Hey,
don't know.
hey, 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 hey,
Hey,
hey,
hey, listen.
hey, hey. We not talking about where he is. We talking about seeing trailers and seeing Spider-Man in jail fighting the hand and being like, "Oh, he about to break Matt Murdock out of jail."
Hey, dog, that would have
I'm
been
just saying.
that would have been
You know what I mean?
him just watching from the side. Yo, who this
What's up,
Spider Man?
Alfonso?
Like,
Um, yeah, I mean, look, I'll be honest. Tomorrow on uh Lotus Sacks Weekly, we're gonna get into some of the things that are happening in the MCU. We're definitely gonna talk about what's going on with like Blade and the canceling of like Wonder Man
Wonder
and all
Man.
that kind of stuff because I have some ideas and theories about what I think is happening in those spaces and why some of those things are happening and why they probably actually make sense, even though a lot of people are upset about it.
Hmm.
Um, we're definitely going to talk about that tomorrow. So make sure you tune in tomorrow night at our regular time, 8:30 for Loading Snacks Weekly. We're getting ready to wrap this up. Jokes,
Hmm.
your score at the beginning of this discussion was a 10.
Hmm.
I don't disagree with it. Give me just a second. I need to hold on.
What we got?
Random stuff said I'm angry the immortal Iron Fist wasn't in it. Said no one. Okay, we on the same page.
Oh,
Good.
said no one. Okay,
Because we
okay.
keep it slim out. Like I don't want him anywhere at all. But I'm glad we got Jess back, and I'm kind of glad we got Luke Cage back. I have issues with that too. Um, Jokes, are you still at a 10?
I'm still at a 10. Like, for me, this movie checked a lot of boxes off. You know, for what it is a
I don't I don't
I
know,
don't know.
Jokes.
This one is like y'all need
They
to
don't want
wrap
you to,
it up.
they don't want you to tell your story.
Nah, but it's
Um,
like I'm fully I wasn't upset with anything with this movie. I think they did a lot of things correct. In trying to throw a lot into this movie,
Hmm.
They made it make sense and it fit the bill of what they were trying to do. Like I said in the beginning of the show, I was afraid, when they announced like all these villains, like, like the Tombstone and all of them got announced, we're going to have the Hulk in this and all. It's kind of be like, yo, it seems like we're about to get movie over. Like we're just going to throw everybody in Spider-Man to just make it like this Civil War-esque type movie.
Hmm.
But the way everything was strategically put in to move the story along, nothing felt overdone. I
Yeah.
think they did what they needed to do with the Hulk, getting him in, showing how he tied in. Here is the Hulk, and now he's gone, and now it worked in a smooth transition for it.
Yeah.
I think they nailed everything with doing Brand New Day and giving this, making Spider-Man. This is, I don't want to say peak Spider-Man, but this is literally like almost, I would say, the tip of the iceberg that you can get with having, him being Spider-Man for some odd years and have figured things out. He's out here taking down crime bosses and doing everything. The city loves him. Like we're literally almost at the peak of where Spider-Man can go until obviously something else can go wrong and we hit rock bottom for Peter Parker. But I think they hit the nail on everything. I'm still at a 10. Um, I think this movie was executed to the nine on here for it.
It's a 10 and executed to the nines. I like it. Um, I'm at a 9.
Mm.
And this is
Organic
the
webbing.
best live action Spider-Man movie that's ever been made. Point blank.
Oh,
Like hands down, this is the best live action Spider-Man movie that's ever been made. But it's not the best Spider-Man movie. And while you could have two Spider-Man movies that are 10s, because Into the Spider-Verse is literal perfection.
mm.
And that's easier to do in animation
Animation. Yeah.
than in live action. I will say that. Um, let me say this. Jokes, do you accept my reasoning behind how Peter Parker has money?
Yeah. No, I honestly, that honestly, he
If
probably
you
never knew
accept if that works for you, then because that's really the only issue I have, that's a 10.
because he's
You know,
born in
like
2001. He probably never knew his parents. Honestly.
well, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm
Yeah.
saying. Like I don't think he ever knew who his parents were. That's
Hmm.
what I'm saying. So Alfonso said he got a 9. Look, that is the glaring thing for me. And you know how I am. Like I'm very much like
Goes a little small. Yep.
I will agree to the rules of your reality and suspend my disbelief to the rules of your reality until I start to pick apart things in your reality. It
And
has
then
to all work. But being able to like, all right, he was born August 1st, 2001. A month later, 9/11 happens. I think his parents died in 9/11. I think they left him a nest egg. I think that they were probably first responders or something along those
hmm
lines. I think he ends up living with Aunt May and Uncle Ben, and then Uncle Ben passes, and I think when Aunt May passes, he's able to get that money as well. I think my man has a nest egg saved up and technically doesn't have to work.
hmm for now.
They don't say that in the movie, but if that's the case, then yeah, it's a 10. Because that's the only thing that's keeping me from having it as a 10. I'm gonna be that guy right now. Look, everybody I know has enjoyed it, has loved this movie. I think it's worth. I've seen it twice. I'm going again. They just announced that it's coming to
It's
IMAX
coming to
now,
IMAX. So,
starting on
yep.
Friday. I'm going to see it in Screen X. I'm going to see it at the drive-in. Like I will see this in every format I can possibly see it in. I will buy this physically on in 4K. Like
Oh
you know what
yeah,
I mean?
no.
Like
Apparently the steel books and stuff have already gone up for pre-order.
relax. I don't need a steel book unless Tracy Ching did it. If Tracy did it, I have to have it, and she might have. I will ask. Look, you know how we do, bro. We're bucketed out cups,
All mine's
buckets.
downstairs.
Like, you know what I mean? I have more buckets and cups than I'll ever need, and there will never ever be a shred of popcorn in any of them.
Nope.
So I have to try to like keep myself from grading on a curve. It's probably a 10. We're gonna wrap this one up. This has been your episode of Spoiler Boys on Spider-Man Brand New Day. We will do a discussion on X-Men 97 once the season is done.
Mm-hmm.
So look for that in the coming weeks. We will see you at our regularly scheduled live time for Loading Snacks Weekly, Tuesday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. For myself, Gage, and for Jokes, I want to thank y'all for hanging out with us. Jokes, let's take it out as if we're doing a different live show. Tell the people what I need them to know.
Remember, y'all, just because you have a well thought out plan doesn't make it a good idea.
With that, we're out. Toodles and lose.
Tighten it up. Get your wing up there now.